Okay, brothers and sisters, I got an article here. I'd like to read it. We need to be praying for Israel because they're putting more pressure on them. So I just want to read this article. Okay, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on Monday assessed a strike warning to Israel to resume long stalled peace talks with the Palestinian authorities, saying that if efforts fail now, they may never get another chance. We are running out of time. We are running out of possibilities. If we do not succeed now, we may not get another chance, Kerry told a forum held by the American Jewish community, according to the AFP news agent, agency. Kerry's warning came added report that he is planning to return to the Middle East regime within days for his fifth trip to Israel since he launched Hold the Future is a Prisoner. We can't let the image of peace become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The top U.S. diplomat agent, in one of his most passionate speeches to date on the search for peace, the abuse of peace becomes conflict, he stressed using the Jewish forum to reflect on what will happen if his peace but does not work. You see, guys, he's threatening Israel. Okay, wait, I want to see what this other thing is here. U.S. Secretary of State, okay. Kerry's warning came, a man reports the emergence of peace in pushing the sides of resume peace talks in recent reports in the frozen countries east of the 1949 articles line to. Okay. Anyways. You know what? There is no such thing as a Palestinian. And there's no such thing as a Palestinian state. That is the biggest lie that has ever been made. Because go back to Genesis. Never, ever do you ever hear of Palestinian. That all started from Abraham. The lineage goes all the way back to Abraham with the Jews and the Arabs. Abraham was he was in Iraq at the time when God called him. And God promised him that his descendants will be as the sand of the sea, or the stars. And then Hagar told him to go. Well, his maid told him to go with the other girl. And what was she? She was an Egyptian. She was an Egyptian, okay? She was not Palestinian. That's the biggest lie of all. But this has to do with Satan and God, because this has nothing. And by the way, these people, before they can make peace in a land, they have to have peace with God. And by the way, they don't want peace, because I'm going to quote you word for word what Arafat said. He said, peace for us means the destruction of Israel. He said, it's not their borders that we don't like, it's their existence. Go check on any Arab map. You will not find America on the Arab map, and you will not find Israel on the American map. Their ultimate goal is to wipe Israel out. And yet, they're trying to say, let's make peace? What kind of joke is this? But I gotta say something. God is with the people of Israel, regardless of what anybody says. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is what's gonna happen. Something devastating may happen in America. He keeps putting pressures on Israel, because there's a recorded history. Now, each time, like even President Bush, Senior Bush, Herbert Bush, he was having a meeting at the time about to try to give up a little land for peace. And what happened? There was a tornado that was being formed. They said, this is strange. This only happens every 100 years. And yet the tornado should have went the opposite way, but it came this way. it was going towards his house, and his house got wrecked and everything. Like, you can see this after event after event. Hurricanes, you name it. Tornadoes, earthquakes. But I want to read this. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 3. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavily stone for all peoples. All who would have it away will surely be cut in pieces. Does it say some? Let's read it again. Jerusalem, a very heavenly stone for all peoples. All who would have it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all the nations of the earth are gathered against it. God keeps his word, and he'll break America in pieces. Like they said, like there's so many people saying that God's showing them. They divide Israel, I'm going to divide the United States. And right here, Israel will win every war, regardless of what anybody says. It's right here in Scripture, because they have God on their side. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 6. In that day I will make the governors of Judea like a fire pin in the wood pin, and like a fiery torch in the shavels. They shall devour all the surrounding peoples on the right hand and on the left. But Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, Jerusalem. Isn't that amazing? So, what does this have to do with? Because even in the Muslims said the end will not come until the Muslims kill the Jews. And they said that Allah is going to give the trees a voice. Say, Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me. Come and kill it. Like, I can go on. This is a joke here. And by the way, the United States government funded the Al-Qaeda. I can go on. This is a joke. But God's going to keep his word. But anyways, this all has to do with Satan and God. Because these people are all possessed by Satan. Satan's using these people. Because you know why? If I'm not going to call them Palestinians, because there's no such thing as a Palestinian. If the Muslims can destroy Israel and Jerusalem, Jesus cannot return. The second coming cannot happen, because God made promises to Israel that he would not be able to fulfill those promises. Then that would make God a liar, and he cannot judge Satan, for Satan is the father of liars, yet he would have lied. But God does not lie. Nothing is going to happen. There's going to be a war coming very soon to Israel. That's why we need to be praying for them. But that's what it has to do with. It's all about Satan and God. And by the way, listen to this. The Virgin Mary, well, she's not a virgin anymore. But anyways, at that time when she was a virgin, the angel Gabriel appeared to her, tell her, your son shall be great, Mary. You shall rule over the house of Jacob forever. Forever. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Now, Jesus cannot rule over something if it's totally wiped off the map. So, this is all that it has to do with. Okay, I want to show you where it says that in 2 Kings chapter 17. Okay, 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 34, right here. 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 34. Okay. So this day they continued branches, the former rules, and they do not fear the Lord, nor do they follow their statutes or their ordinance or the law and commandments which the Lord had commanded the children of Jacob, who he named Israel. You know what? Ahmadinejad is going to be wiped off the map, because what he's doing is very dangerous. You don't mess around with God's people. He's threatening Israel to be wiped off the face of the map, and this, you know what? God told us all about this. You know what? The book of Psalms was written 1,000 years before Jesus was ever born. Well, before he came into the world, because he's eternal. He's from everlasting to everlasting. But if you go to Psalms 83, verse 4, this is what it says. Psalms 83, verse 4. Okay, Psalms 83. Right here, verse 4. They have said, come and let us cut them off. Okay, wait. They have said, come and let us cut them off. Cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. For they have counseled together with one consent. They're all agreeing on it. And Assyria is in here. That's Psalms 83. So this is probably where this prophecy is going to be fulfilled right here. This is in the break of fulfillment right now. Right here. Isaiah chapter 17. The burden against Damascus. Imagine, a burden. Look at Assyria, how many people they're killing and this and that. And yet, back then, it wasn't a burden. Imagine reading this back then. What, Damascus is a burden? Because that's where Paul was on his way to Damascus. There was nothing wrong back then. But yet, that's the significance of Bible prophecy. But I want to continue reading it. The burden against Damascus. Behold, Damascus will cease from being a city. From being a city. Which means it's going to be totally wiped out. All the enemies of Israel are going to be annihilated. It says in my Bible that Egypt is going to become a desert. That's in the book of Joel. And even Iran's going to be gone. Iran. Which name was changed? Because before, his name was Persia. But they changed it in 1932 to Iran. Yeah, that's where I'm going to. The book of Joel, because I want to show you guys. Joel chapter 2, is it chapter 2, verse 20? Joel chapter 2. No, it's Joel chapter 3, probably. Joel chapter 3. Yeah, right here. Yeah, Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom a desolate wilderness, because of violence against the people of Judea, for they have shed innocent blood in their land. But Judea shall abide forever. There will always be a Jew. Forever. And Jerusalem from generation to generation. For I will require them of the guilt of bloodshed, who I had not required, for the Lord dwells in Zion. This is all, and yet they want to make peace. Explain to me, why in the world do you want to make peace when Iran is finishing off their nuclear program? Oh, we're at peace. So they get them distracted. So when Iran's finished their nuclear program, what are they going to do? They're going to set the nuke over. But it's not going to happen. Because God tells us the beginning to end in His holy word. All this stuff happening does not surprise God. It's in His word. Look, what's a burdensome stone right now? Israel, Israel. The United Nations is dealing with Israel, and where it says Jerusalem shall be a burdensome stone, they're fighting over Jerusalem. You have the European Union, you have the Vatican, the United Nations, and the Muslims. They're telling the Jews to surrender their sovereignty over the city of Jerusalem. This is what's going to cause World War III. That's what's going to be the cause of the Battle of Armageddon. And plus Jesus says, do not swear by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. It belongs to Jesus. And if you go to Chronicles, I don't know what chapter it's in, but it says, I have marked my name upon Jerusalem. All through the Old Testament, the city of Jerusalem was in the possessions of the Jews. It belongs to the Jews. That is their land. And yet people want to throw them out of there. Well, if you don't like it, leave. You guys can leave and go back to your own country in Micah, where you belong, if you want to be like that. Leave the Jews alone. But yeah, that's what the Bible said as well, that they will always be against each other. Ishmael, he should be like a wild donkey against his brothers, and so on and so on. But anyways, God will defend Israel. And I'm afraid that if this guy, John Kerry, does anything to Israel, tries to threaten them or whatever to make peace, I'm really afraid that a tornado is going to come to the United States again, earthquakes, hurricanes, and all kinds of devastating things that will happen. Because God keeps His word. God says, I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And the blessing and the protection of God has been removed from the United States as we know it. They kicked God out of the Constitution. They're removing everything that has to do with Him. So that's when judgment is going to fall, accepting all these new things, homosexuality, you name it. Judgment is going to fall. But anyways, if anybody's listening to this that lives in Israel, be of good cheer. God is on your side, and He will defend you. Don't listen to these guys. These guys are in for something else. God's going to have His way with them. And this is all I got to say, and God bless.